KFGO for a Cause is brought to you by Neil Van Dam and the Van Dam Financial Group. And Neil joins us in studio again. Neil, welcome back to the KFGO studio.
Good morning.
And I'm Amy Iler, usually here on It Takes Two from 11 to 2, but hang out here on Sunday mornings with you. And this is the Emergency Food Pantry is near and dear to my heart. I just love them. I love them as an organization. The moment I met Stacie Loegering, I was like, she is my people. I just adore you and what you do, Stacie. So welcome to KFGO for a Cause.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having us this morning.
We met Stacie because I had this weird idea. I was like, we should do a peanut butter drive. People should bring us peanut butter. And that so started It Takes Two's friendship with the Emergency Food Pantry. But Stacie, let's talk about who the food pantry is. And maybe a better way to start this conversation is, what is the difference between a food pantry and a food bank? Like most people, when we say food pantry, they think of the Great Plains Food Bank. But the Great Plains Food Bank and the Emergency Food Pantry are two very different organizations.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks so much for helping us take that time to clarify. Looking back at some history, since the 1980s, we've been trying to help the community understand the difference. So it's going on for decades. So
Yes.
we'll try again today. Really can think about the Great Plains Food Bank as being a warehouse of food. So they really source it, store it, and then get it distributed. Great Plains Food Bank has almost 200 partners across North Dakota and Clay County, Minnesota. So we're one of those partners. So thinking about the food bank is where those boxes of food are stored, and thinking about a food pantry is where the people come to physically get food. And so, we're one of quite a few places right here in Fargo Moorhead, as well as the state, that are able to provide food directly to people. So we're really set up as currently a prepackaged option when somebody shows up. We've got a cart of food available that people can get, and we're moving towards more of that shopping experience here in the near future.
Okay, so let's start with, who are the people that can visit the Emergency Food Pantry and seek out your services?
Yeah, when you look at the overview, it's people who are 200% of the poverty guideline. You guys, that's a little boring. What the heck does that mean, right?
Yeah.
So really, it's people who are feeling hardship. They're and making hard decisions to figure out how to feed themselves and their kids. And I think there's this also misconception of somebody who's maybe not working, somebody who's, just in the worst place of their life. But who we really see are our coworkers. In North Dakota, 1 in 6 people are in that food insecurity income guidelines. And I think that's hard for us to fathom because it's people right around us in our own businesses and our own churches and our own service clubs that are struggling. And it's just hard to ask for help. As I was thinking about our conversation this morning, I recognized, some of that, like, who is in need. And one of the things we want to really focus on are most people are working, and it's just either not enough income or they're working multiple jobs and some big thing happens and just cannot afford day-to-day living.
I mean, I think that's so important to point out that you might only see people for a little while they need to get through that hardship that you're talking about. And unfortunately, people can't visit you on a really regular basis. Like, there are stipulations about that too, Stacie.
Yeah. So how we're set up right now is actually getting help once every 2 months. And that seems like a huge gap when somebody's in crisis. But there are quite a few other food options in the community. And we work really well within that network to say, okay, today you're getting food from us. Here's the list of other places that you can go to between now and the next time you visit, and really work hard. Even behind the scenes, what people aren't seeing is if one of the food pantries has excess of a certain type of food, we are able to share within the network. And so then we have conversations about how do we get 2 pallets of bananas to the right food pantries and shelters to be able to make sure that those bananas are ate within a good time.
What are some of the other places, just for our listeners?
Absolutely. So a couple of the really bigger ones are Dorothy Day Food Pantry out of Moorhead, West Fargo Eats out of West Fargo, and we have Seeds of Hope in Dilworth. I kind of think of those as maybe one in each of the cities. But again, we kind of focus on Cass and Clay County. And then there are quite a few churches as well that they're not offering food like every day like we are, but they're open a couple of times a month or a couple of times a week. And so again, that great partnership with Great Plains Food Bank, we do keep a list updated on that website, as well as being able to reach out to First Link when somebody is in need. A really great way to find food is just to dial 211 and ask their call specialist how they might be able to find food in the region.
Tell us about the food that people are receiving from the Emergency Food Pantry. Like what, you mentioned that it's a set parameter of what they get now, and you hope that it can be a shopping experience someday. I mean, that's treating people like humans, is letting them shop for their food. So that's a goal, because that is how it was before the pandemic, right?
It was, yeah. And I think the team has been amazing at making that efficiency, thinking about, safety guidelines during those really uncertain times early in the pandemic. And so we really anticipate getting back to that yet this year. So right now, I think one of the things we're very proud of is having a wide variety of food. So I would say maybe about a third of the food is non-perishables. That allows us to get food in cans, noodles, things like cereal, so that we know that we have it on our shelves and able to give that out. We also always have frozen meat. And so one of the things that we do, again, to make sure that we're keeping food safe, as well as being able to have the food at the right time that we need it, is any meat that comes into our facility gets frozen. And that allows us to make sure that we're able to distribute that as the need comes up. We actually historically have been able to offer milk and eggs even through some of these hard times. And then one of the other things that's always a variable is the partnerships through Great Plains Food Bank. We're actually a part of the Feeding America Network. So Great Plains Food Bank, as well as our staff, will go out to the local grocery stores and big box stores and be able to get the food that they would be no longer using because they're not going to sell it. And then we have a certain amount of days past those dates on the food that we're still able to distribute. And so that honestly just looks so different every day, but we usually have some sorts of greens and vegetables. We often have like dairy, so it might be cottage cheese or yogurt. And then now this is the time to kind of put the plug in. During the summers, we can also accept fresh garden vegetables. So during those times where you've grown a lot and the neighbors and the coworkers you've inundated everybody, please think of us and other food pantries, because it's an amazing opportunity.
I love zucchini, but I don't love 400 in 2 weeks.
And we'll try to take some and give recipes out, and how do you best keep eating it, right?
Yes. Okay, so and I think of you every time we get to the garden produce season. Do you also take preserved items? Is that a weird question?
It's not a weird question. We have to have ours from an actual warehouse facility. Okay. So it needs to be, produced within the safety guidelines, and things like that. And so, we can't take any canned goods, home canned goods, excuse me. Yep. We can't take any dried herbs.
Sure.
But we'll have people clear out their garden and bring in bunches of dill or amazing oregano or things like that. And then we will actually provide that fresh herb to people in need, and then they're able to either use or preserve at their own home.
I love that. And rhubarb, do you take rhubarb?
Yep.
Do you provide rhubarb recipes?
We can. We have not. But when we get a certain food or we get a request like that, so I'll write that down and just recognize there's some of that really traditional feel of things that people really appreciate.
Yeah. And I noted too, when I think of things like rhubarb or other fresh items that are coming in from people's gardens, when I was there, you do provide some things that someone could have a baking experience. Like you have flour and sugar and all of those things to go along with these items too.
Yes, we do. Yeah. And I'll just put in a little plug too. We have a local church that supplies us with dollars or supplies to offer kids birthday bags. And so
I love the birthday bags. I love the birthday bags.
So when a family comes in and it's going to be a birthday of their child between now and the next time they visit, we're able to offer that. And most times it's a cake mix frosting and a card. Sometimes a card made from another child in the community.
I love that. KFGO for a Cause, brought to you by Neil Van Dam and the Van Dam Financial Group. Stacie Loegering is with us, the Executive Director of the Emergency Food Pantry. We've talked about you for, half the show, and we haven't even said where you are yet. But I think when you mention where your location is, people are going to go, yes, I have driven by. Sometimes those heartbreaking mornings when people are waiting outside your door for food, I think is what people notice the most, Stacie.
Yes. Yeah, we're on 4th Avenue North between University and 10th Street North. The actual address is 1101 4th Avenue. And so it used to be a tire warehouse. And so we were able to get that with funding and community support. It's already been 12 years that the organization has been in that building. Anybody who likes history, if you just go up 10th Street and you see a water tower to the left, the old fire warehouse, a firehouse, which is a brick building used to be the food pantry prior to that for a number of years. So we've grown 12 years, as we were talking a little bit, bursting at the seams a bit. And so really trying to dream of what the next step is. What are some of those next ways to be able to provide food in a respectful way?
Let's talk about the myths of the people that come to visit you, because I think people assume that if you're going to the Emergency Food Pantry, that maybe you don't have an education, you don't have a job. We started the show talking a little bit about that, but the people that you see really are our neighbors and our friends.
They are. And I think that's one of those things that people are really, don't share a lot about those hardships that they're experiencing. We know that the people who are coming into the food pantries, that over 70% have at least one chronic health disease. And that's higher than the general public, and as we think about some of those health crises, that's one of the things that we're experiencing. We want to know that we're offering healthy food choices, so I think historically what food pantries did, give us food that's donated and we give that food out. Where we're trying to look at where is that shift to make sure that we're giving healthy foods. We also hear kind of the misconception that people are unhoused, right? We do have a number of people who are unhoused. They're able to come in. We try to find the appropriate foods that are going to be most useful for their cooking facilities. We have people who are, going from couch to couch. And so recognizing what types of foods are they going to need that's going to be most helpful. I'm going to go back to second for those chronic health needs too, where some people will be like maybe gluten-free, aren't able to eat milk, that sort of thing. And we do our best to be able to provide the food that we have on hand for that. I think another thing is that people aren't working, right? And I think what can happen is a person gets into a job that's just barely making it, but they don't have sick leave. And so now a family member gets sick or somebody has to have an operation, etc. We've even heard people who have lost their jobs because they've asked for an extended time off, So there's those different difficulties that people are experiencing. And I think another thing is just, people are not thinking about their own health as something that's important, but we know people who are coming to us are highly educated. Majority of the people have a high school diploma, as well as a number of people have over 2 years degrees, and so again, just recognizing who we might think be standing in a line at a food pantry or a food shelf, recognizing that it is anybody that we might know.
Yeah.
And I think another thing that stood out for me too is, just the this person must have enough money because they have a nice car. But I do recognize a number of people. That's probably one of the most stable things that are available in their life. And if you have a reliable car, you're able to get to work. You're able to get your kids to school. And it's not like you can all of a sudden sell a car to have food for the week, So some of those may be, questions that we have about somebody who might be seeking help because we don't know. Everybody's story is so unique.
Yeah. Will you share one of those stories with us? I know that you have so many, and so many of them are so impactful to kind of put a voice to those people that we want to reach out and help and feed in our community.
This is a really short one. It happened about a year ago. And so parents came in. They were needing food. Again, as I've shared one of my favorite Jonathan stories, the parents felt horrible about not being able to afford food for their kids. And their oldest had a lung disorder where hot, humid air was difficult, and they had a window air conditioner that broke down. So now they needed to buy a window air conditioner and decide that they had to get that window air conditioner for their son. But then that meant that they weren't able to afford food for a week. So they were able to come in and get both. And they felt a lot better about it, of just recognizing that's exactly why we're there. We cannot anticipate the things that are going to happen to us. And, the one story was a car battery died, so it's something that might be like, oh, it's maintenance or needing to repair. But so many people are living paycheck to paycheck. And I do want to extend that story a little bit. So that's the story, the impact.
Yes.
But I also want to share the story of partners. So we had the Bio Girls work on a food donation for us, and I was able to go present to them. I shared that story to this group of young girls, and that was just part of my day, right? So a couple weeks later, I was out grocery shopping and ran across somebody that I know from a leadership training, and we were just chatting, getting to know. And her daughter said, "Where does she work?" Well, she was a member of the Bio Girls. she told me that she remembered me coming in, and she was able to share that whole story from her own memory to understand the impact of the work that they've done and the work that we're doing. And it's a collective thing. And I think that not only for them to be able to volunteer and donate to the pantry, but to have that in her memory to say, there are people around me, there are people in my class that are really struggling with that. And to me, that was just this kind of like whole circle moment of recognizing that even having conversations like this have huge impacts.
Yeah, for sure. Mm-hmm. And Bio Girls have been featured on this show before. We've had them on. What a great organization. I mean, all of you are just feeding these different needs in the community and connecting each other, which is so amazing. Is money your most needed thing? Like someone's listening and they feel inspired to help your mission. I feel very passionately about your mission. Like feeding people is just the most basic thing we can do for each other. Is that it? Is it money? Is it food? Like what is your most needed treasure at the Emergency Food Pantry?
I would say yes, that the funds give us the flexibility. It's also the yes and, right?
Yeah.
So when we're able to get that kind of cash in hand, that donation that's available to us, we're able to get the items that we need, right? Whether that's...
You're able to fill the gaps.
Absolutely.
So if someone's done a food drive and you have lots of canned goods and lots of peanut butter and lots of hygiene items, which we should also talk about before you leave, let's not forget about that. Maybe it's filling that gap with going out and buying those milk and eggs that you were talking about, right?
Exactly. Yep. And there are times we're watching our inventory and going, wow, we need a pile of canned fruit because we like to have certain items available at all times. And that didn't come in that food drive. So that funding helps us just recognize the repair bills, the fridge that has to be, maintained and repaired, a vehicle that goes out and picks up food, etc. Two other ways to help us are the food drives. In the summer, we are working on another summer challenge. This is the time of year where people start thinking about graduation, taking their vacations, going to the lakes. We get more people asking for help, but we also get fewer dollar and food donations during this time. So we do work towards kind of pumping that up. So if you're a business out there, family that want to do some food drives, that's amazing. And also volunteering. So that was kind of three things that help us. If I remember correctly, probably late July and into August, we will need volunteers as well. They're not on our schedule yet. Again, people are busy. They're thinking about what they need to do, even if it's now the end of summer and they're thinking about school. That's where their focus is. So this becomes a time where, funding, I think, is that flexibility. But definitely the other two ways really helps us.
That garden produce too. And they can drop it off. When do you take donations of food if someone has food to donate or garden produce to donate or hygiene items?
Absolutely. I'll mention the hygiene items since it's come up 2 times.
Please do.
So we don't spend our dollars on hygiene except for toilet paper and soap. But many people coming in are needing things like toothbrushes and toothpaste, shampoo, body wash, razors, and recognizing that those are basic needs in order to get out there to your job, to get to your job interviews, those types of things. So we're in the building at 1101 4th Avenue North in Fargo from 8 to 4, Monday through Friday. A person can actually just drive right to the garage door, and there's a door that says donations here. And so we'll be able to help out. If there's a large donation, we'll be able to, track some things if you want a receipt for those foods or goods. But we really try to make it as flexible as possible. We'll also be watching the news here shortly. The NDSU Master Gardeners typically have a Monday evening where they'll also collect their garden vegetables for us. And that's an easier place for people to come home after work, do their harvesting in their garden, drop it off on that Monday night. So that doesn't interfere with their next business day. And then the Master Gardeners bring it over to us.
How nice.
Yeah.
Monday evenings, NDSU Master Gardeners. And I know, shout out to the teachers because they're the ones that are doing, the real work getting you your hygiene items, right? Don't you have a group of teachers that do that?
It's amazing. The Retired Teachers Association. And so that's actually one of the things that they do every year. And so certain months of the year, they'll have a certain item that they'll ask people to bring.
Amazing.
I think the other thing we were talking about, just how much support there is in the community. Yeah. We have over 40 churches that either volunteer, donate funds, or donate goods. And so we have a church that two times a year, actually. They list a number of different types of food and those hygiene items and those diapers so that we're able to have those items available when people come through.
I love it. Stacie Loegering is from the Emergency Food Pantry. You have a great website, too.
Yes, please go to www.emergencyfoodpantry.com.
It's as easy as that. Can't believe you got that one.
It is
for
a
sure.
.com,
For sure, people are trying to get that from you. Stacie, thanks so much for being on KFGO for a cause.
I appreciate the time this morning.
Thanks.